Hello and welcome to today's episode number 15 of the Human Condition Podcast. I'm your host, American Council on Exercise Certified Personal Trainer, Kiri Jones. In this episode, I will, of course, ramble a lot about nonsensical things, but I'm going to be covering the most recent blog post about mitochondria, and then I'm going to cover a comment that came through on the last podcast episode, and that will, in all honesty, very much dominate the remainder of this podcast episode. But first, instead of talking about what is in the most recent blog post about mitochondria, because it's very science heavy and not everybody is interested in that, but I want to discuss more why I wrote it. And it's because there's a lot of things that occur within the body that are on such a microscopic level that people don't think about. And the problem is our bodies are so interconnected. Everything is so connected and relies on, itself and each other and all the systems to work in conjunction together to like really live in optimal health. And so when one of those cogs in the machine is not working at an optimal level, it has this cascading effect across the body. And one of those things that can get really messed up is your mitochondria. And I'm not really sure if there's diagnostic material involved in figuring out whether or not it is your mitochondria that is messed up. But what doesn't hurt is trying to live life in a way that would be beneficial to your mitochondria as opposed to the opposite. And so I really like to dive into the science heavy stuff. I like to read books and articles and research papers about things because like I said, everything is so connected. And if I can understand one system or one part of the puzzle well enough to start improving that part of the puzzle, then I can also have that like positive cascading effect across the body. And I think it's important for people to, if they really, really want to know about themselves, is to really understand all of the different parts and processes that exist within the body. I like to, and I've mentioned this before, treat myself as my own experiment. And so, never in a negative way. Like I don't do things that could affect me negatively. I don't do dangerous things. I'm not engaging in fads that are potentially harmful. The only things I'm doing are like making these micro adjustments in my daily life to try to like optimize my health, and then to be able to see based on the data and the feedback that I get, what are the outcomes? Am I doing the right thing? Am I moving in the right direction? Is this correct for me personally? Because what's correct for me is not correct for everybody. And so that is the reason that I created this blog post. I want people to see that there is a reason to be passionate about the small things you can't see. And it's not the only science heavy post that there will be, and I'm sure there will be more. And I would really, really love if, anybody could just shoot me a topic that I, can look into. Otherwise, I'll just, I like to go down rabbit holes and find things to look up myself. And usually it's in a very non-structured way until, I'm like, it's 2:00 in the morning and I wake up out of a dead sleep wondering like, whatever. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to, I'm going to read the comment and then I'm going to discuss the comment, and then the major portion of what I'm going to discuss has to do with the end of the comment. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. This was on episode 13. This was on episode 13 of the podcast. Jackie writes, I know Jackie. Jackie writes, keto jacked up my metabolism. I did strict vegetarian keto for 3 months and never had any energy. When I went back to my normal clean eating and IF, which is intermittent fasting, I couldn't seem to lose any more weight. It's so important to know your own body and not do everything that worked for someone else. I'm happy to see someone talking about the risks and doing the research instead of promoting whatever's trending. I've been seeing a lot of people posting about vibration plates. Have you looked into them? Now, first I want to address the dieting thing, and I love this statement. I've heard it said quite a few times, is the best diet is the one that you'll stick to. And obviously that's nuanced in a way where like if your typical diet is like Doritos and Mountain Dew and you know you'll stick to that, like maybe that's not exactly what we're talking about. But I know Jackie and I know that this is not how Jackie operates. It's the keto thing. It's easy to get wrapped up in because you can see like who it's working for, or like people are portraying themselves in a way that it is working for them, regardless of whether it's true or not. I have a very hard time believing a lot of people uh, who post their like success stories on the internet. And I have this like barometer of like really trying to figure out if I trust people or not. And that's if they have a lot of followers and they have a lot of interaction on their content, I find it harder to believe that they're being wholly honest, because what got them these clicks, likes, and followers is this journey that they're on. And so if it's not working, but that's what they're selling to people, then they're going to do anything they can to make it appealing to other people. So, you know, I mean, doing the research is there. I've never looked into, and I didn't really think about it, to be honest, because I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but like I imagine that vegetarian keto probably lacks a lot of like the really micro level nutrients. Um, there's like key nutrients that you get from like meats that I feel like in keto, on a keto diet, because you're so limited in what you're eating already, and then you limit it even further by being vegetarian, that it's no wonder that like your energy levels was like nothing. And so I don't really know. That's not the part of the comment that I researched. I would be interested to look more into that just to see like if anything follows. But the inability to lose weight happens to so many people, and it comes from, you know, from a lack of like really in-depth understanding of yourself. And I know there's so many influencers and coaches and stuff out there that are like calories in, calories out. That's all you got to know. And like, that's great and all, but like once you hit like a certain point, it's nice to know what's optimal for you, and not necessarily because, calories in, calories out is great. But once you're like plateauing, then it's kind of like to gain, or not to gain, but like to lose those extra pounds that you're trying to lose is like fighting an uphill battle. And like it's possible, it's not impossible. But wouldn't you rather just walk up the hill, or like have access to an escalator that would just take you there? Because that's what I really feel like in-depth understanding of your body is like you're still fighting the uphill battle, because health is a journey. It is. Nobody said it was easy. But I would rather have the knowledge of myself personally, and then be able to just step on that escalator of knowledge and then continue to fight my uphill battle, but make it easy on myself. You know what I mean? And I think I talked about this in the last podcast, where I said, like, I listened to the Andrew Huberman podcast where Dr. Mike Israetel said something about how people have this negative connotation of people who take weight loss medication or steroids, because it's like, if you didn't struggle for it, did you really earn it? And I think, that was such a moment of clarity for me, that like that kind of pivoted my whole thought process on making the journey easy for yourself. And like, obviously I know that the weight loss medication is overprescribed, and I know that people are using performance enhancing drugs that really shouldn't be using it, and like everything comes from like, I don't have a problem with what people do in their personal lives, as long as they're coming at it from a place of understanding and education. I don't think that it's fair for me to have any other opinion, because those people's lives are not mine. And I don't know what they go through. I don't know what they struggle with, but I'm going off in a direction that is going away from the topic of conversation. So again, having that really personal level of understanding of yourself is what makes the uphill battle easier. And, that comes from like being able to sit down with your doctor and request these like full hormone panels and full metabolic panels and like, taking the levels that you get and like obviously discuss them with your doctor. Your doctor might tell you like, "Oh, you're fine here," and that's great. From the medical perspective as a whole, you might appear to be super healthy, but then take it a step further and then take those levels and then do the research yourself to find out if you're actually operating in an optimal level for yourself. And like use that. You use it to like experiment on yourself. Can you improve this metabolic marker? Can you improve, how you feel after, whatever, a workout? Like get all of the tools that you can get and use them. Uh, but yes, I will continue to talk about this. I will continue to be the voice that doesn't follow the trend. And I know there are so many people that don't follow the trends now. I'm loving seeing it on social media, like all of the people that are calling out the stupid things that they're seeing or like even potentially harmful things and really making sure that they're in it for the right reasons and that they're in it to help people because you know, I don't like to embolden the rage baiting ideology that exists on the internet, and I hate that. I don't know if it's like it's in like an addiction, like a dopamine addiction thing when you're starting to get those followers and clicks and likes and things that makes you really feel the need to be misleading to other people because you're like maybe worried about losing a sponsorship or your whatever program you're involved in that gets paid from TikTok or from YouTube. Um, it's sad really, and what I think people forget is like when they first started gaining traction on the internet, it was because they were posting about their life and their journey, and that's what people followed along with because they were real. And I don't know. Social media is it drives me nuts, but it's so useful all at the same time. I mean, my TikTok is slightly less useful in terms of being a platform where I can talk about health and fitness because people seem to care more about like my homestead stuff and my chickens and like me trying to prune a peach tree than they do about like motivation for health and fitness. I don't know. I like my chickens too. I don't really know how the two I could incorporate the two together. Like I'm not gonna like hold a chicken and talk about mitochondrial dysfunction. Again, tangent. The bulk of what this is going to be about, what I'm going to address is these vibration plates. Sorry, vibration plates. And so I'd seen them on the internet. I've come across them a handful of times, just like kind of scrolled past. And I always thought it was like more related to those 1950s, 1960s like machines where you'd see like the people would stand in it and there was like a belt that wrapped around the back of them and just wiggled them all over the place. But no, like they're a thing. Like it's a device that you stand on and it vibrates under your feet. Um, so I started to look into it. I started to do the research, and then I very, very quickly became super infuriated by what I was seeing. So if you type in whole body vibration or vibrating plates, you're going to come across some articles like Mayo Clinic articles, whatever. Like you're going to see these things that are going to look very legitimate and that what they're going to tout is there's, benefits to weight loss, benefits to strength gaining. I saw some of them that were like, could even reverse or alleviate certain symptoms of type 2 diabetes. And I was like, wow, if these are really that, beneficial, maybe they should be talked about more. And so I've taken statistics classes, I've taken marketing classes, and that thought where I said, wow, these seem really beneficial was very quickly monopolized by things that I had learned in the past, where it's so easy to cherry pick for, if you're trying to sell something, you're going to cherry pick out of what's in existence, and you're not lying. You're just omitting so many facts that like it's too good to be true. And so, bottom line up front for vibrating plates, in my opinion, use them if what you're using them for is a net positive to you. And the long version of this is where you're going to find out whether or not there is that net positive. But as I was doing the research, I was trying to connect these claims to existing research studies. And the main portion of where the research studies come from that I pull up is from the NIH, the National Institute of Health. And it's mostly just like a compendium of like existing research. There are other places you can find these studies. It's just the most whatever. So I'm looking for these keywords for these vibrating plates, and then I'm trying to compare it to the benefits that are listed in these articles. And these articles are the type of articles that come up when you search it as like a normal person who is not looking for the science-backed thing. You're looking for an answer to a question. That's mostly what these quick fixes ended up being, is like an answer to a question. And so when you think, oh, all I can do is stand on this vibrating plate and I will burn fat, I hate the misleading marketing of it. I hate it so much. When you get into these studies, you start to see like, I'm going to use this first as an example, the fat burning thing. So the article claimed that it increased your energy expenditure in a way that was like going to burn more calories. And when you go into the research, you'll find this research was conducted solely on men, just men, which that alone is a huge problem because there are not just men in the world. Further beyond that, these men were engaging in exercise, like sets or repetitions of certain movements while on these vibrating weight plates. Not weight plates, vibrating plates. Whole body vibration. And so that's where that increase in an energy expenditure came from, was in performing these exercises while on the machine. By omitting that in your articles that you're giving to people or like letting people read, you can't, it's lying by omission, in my opinion. I know that they technically didn't do anything wrong because they omitted this information, but like, you're misleading people. If I were a person who didn't know any better, I would read that article and assume that I could just buy one of these things and I could stand on it or sit on it for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it says to do, and I would be able to burn fat. But that's not true, and that's not the case. And I really think that needs to be addressed. The whole thing needs to be addressed. And what happened was, as I was going through this research and like comparing like the article to the research studies, is I was getting infuriated. And like, this really deep down is one of the biggest parts of the reason as to why I started The Human Condition and why I started this podcast and these blogs, is because I'm trying to be the person that pulls the curtain down from Oz. I know there's a lot of people that do it, but the more of us that do it, the more it's going to come across to the right people, the people that are looking for the information. I'm trying to keep people from being misled by things like this. Another claim that it made was that it helped with osteoporosis and balance in older adults. Now, the balance thing I can't really speak to. There really wasn't much of a finding in either direction. And the problem is, when you conduct all these studies together, you have a harder time pinpointing specific variables and what was beneficial. But the osteoporosis and balance thing, It claimed in one of these articles that it could help older adults regain bone density and strength, and so that would lessen their lessen the incidences of falls. What the article omitted was that in the study, they had two groups of older adults. One group did stretching and strength training, and the other one did whole body vibration and strength training. So they omitted the fact that these older adults were also on a strength training program. Admittedly, there was a slightly higher improvement rate in the whole body vibration older adults. But again, if you're omitting the key part where strength training was being conducted, then you're missing the point. Because as an older adult who didn't know any better, I would go on there and assume that I could just stand on the whole body vibration thing and that I would not fall, or I would regain some bone density and that would be that. But that's not the case. And it's really unfair to market it that way. Let's think of another one. Here's one. The type 2 diabetes claim. It was reversing or negating certain symptoms associated with type 2 diabetes, where I can't remember what the very specific symptoms were, because it was in a blind rage as I was reading this article. The study was conducted in mice. And I know, research-wise, whenever we're doing these things, it always happens in a layered approach where we start from like the smallest organism, and then we get more complicated and more complicated. Well, like mice is not the pre-human being trial. It's not the step before humans. It's a way for people to conduct research to start seeing what is beneficial before you can increase to the next level. So as promising as it is for these vibration plates to help with alleviating certain symptoms of type 2 diabetes, it is unfair to make the claim that it does this while omitting the fact that it does this in mice. There is no substantial evidence that proves that these vibrating plates are beneficial to human adults with type 2 diabetes. I'm getting frustrated as I'm speaking about this. I'm really trying to stay professional here. Let's see. I'm going to talk about one more of these things. There were claims about weight loss, cognitive function, energy expenditure, etc. There was a major study that was conducted, and it is very much, I don't even want to say it was cited in most of the articles that you can find about vibration plates, because there really wasn't good citation occurring. Maybe there was some links that you could click on, and you would have to know to click on it, and then you would have to read through all of the scientific jargon and know where to look in the research paper in order to find like these key things that are being omitted. And so, like the mice one, for instance, they linked the study. They just didn't mention it in the article. If I were me and I wasn't actively looking for it, I'm not going to click a link to read a research paper. I'm just going to keep reading the article that I'm reading. But anyway, most of these articles are referring to this one specific research that was conducted. And when I went into this specific research, I found out that it was a meta-analysis research, which is basically it's a research conducted upon several other types of research, where they go read those research papers, and then they accumulate all of the data, and then they base their inference about, whatever it was that the research was about on the data that came out of these several different research papers. So basically, they're not conducting the research. there's no way to control for what is existent across the board. And so you can't claim certain benefits if there's no way to recreate it. Like there was no real big benefit that was drawn from this as a conclusion, this meta-analysis of data. And then B, they couldn't even create a protocol to follow with these vibration plates because it was a meta-analysis. There was not one protocol across the board. There was no way for them to figure out what it was that people should do to even come close to getting the benefits that they were saying that this thing could do. And so it's important for people to understand that what occurs a lot in discussing these things is health and fitness is an industry. And as an industry, it is attempting to get money. It's not a nonprofit organization. The whole thing exists for profit. And so a lot of times, news, journalism, marketing will jump on these small statements that are made in these research papers, and that's what they push out to the world. And it's the same with everything. Happens a lot with anything. And it's not just health and fitness. Like it happened, during COVID. We had this running joke at my old job for a while that like, if you typed in any number in existence, any number that you could think of, and then made it part of like COVID cases in whatever, it would come up with an article with that exact number that you were looking for, no matter how obscure the article or the number was, because you can just cherry pick information. You can write an article about it and then you can post it on the internet because it's the way the internet is. So they cherry pick these things from these studies in order to sell the product or in order to sell the idea, or push people in the direction of. And I know that like not everything cherry picks on purpose. Like sometimes it's like a game of telephone. Like sometimes you just pick the data up and you're like, oh, this could really benefit hundreds of thousands of people, so I'm just going to repeat it. And it's unfortunate that that's the case with a lot of things. And so as long as we're moving in a direction where we're trying to be more transparent, or we have a lot more people that are trying to really pull the curtain back, I think we're moving in a good direction. So that was my long-winded way of saying, oh, no, hold on. Let me digress for a second, because there are certain things that are beneficial with these vibrating plates. And that's like, it can alleviate lower back pain. And of course it can, because it's acting as like a type of massage. You could like stand or sit on it, whatever the case is. It can increase blood flow, and that is a benefit of like a combination of vibration and also like stimulating peripheral nerves. Beyond that, I mean, if you're going to use it the way that they did in the study, where you're actually conducting sets or repetitions of certain movements while on it, you could have a 10 to 20% increase in your energy expenditure, which could just make your workout that much more difficult. But if you're going to do that, come at it from the perspective of understanding that like your energy expenditure from exercise is just a small portion of your total daily energy expenditure. So, is the cost going to outweigh the benefit, if that makes sense? So there are benefits. There are some benefits, however small, to using these vibration plates. And I shouldn't even say however small, because I understand, like, I have lower back pain. I know a lot of people have back pain. With chronic pain, if you can do anything to alleviate it, do that. But they're beneficial for very few reasons. And the only reason that I would suggest using them is if you are using them for those reasons, or if you have, if you have the money to spend on it and you would like to experiment with the effect of these whole body vibrations on you and your physical fitness. by all means do it, but don't do it blindly. And so, yeah, that is my very long-winded way of saying, get it if you want it, but don't get it for the reasons that they tell you should get it. So, yeah, that was, like I said, it took up a big portion of the podcast. And I just want to reiterate the fact that, like, this talking point here is the biggest reason why I do what I do, why I continue to make podcasts, because if somebody asks, like Jackie asked, if somebody asks a question, somebody else is bound to have that same question. And so, it doesn't matter how many followers I have. It doesn't matter how many people listen to the podcast, how many people read my blogs. I don't care, because at some point, the right person is going to find the information they're looking for. And so I'm just going to keep doing it, because right now in my life, I have no reason not to. And so, yeah, comment on my stuff. Comment on it, like it, follow, subscribe, whatever the thing is, whatever platform you're watching, looking, staring at me on. Give me stuff to talk about, because as you can see, I'm more than willing to talk about it. Maybe not everything will be as passionate as that, but I'm willing to talk about it. So, yeah. I mean, you can even shoot me an email if it's, a long-winded thing. But I'm also here for, one-on-one coaching on the internet. That's really the key here. That was like the key, the cornerstone to my business is putting out the information, and then like also being able to help people on a one-on-one basis. And I am a certified personal trainer, and I know that I've discussed this part in the past where like I don't do the sets and reps thing, so maybe I'm more akin to a health coach than anything, but not like the abused terminology of health coach where like I got some weird guru course certification in health coaching, because I don't know. I'm getting too far into the weeds here. We'll talk about that another time. So anyway, that's the podcast. So without further ado, until next time.